list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
Beautiful harmony.
Harmonies by April Leonard.
Beautiful harmonies from April Leonard. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back to This List Sucks bonus episode time. And we have a very special guest.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned in the main episode, Justin was our primary guest. And now for the bonus episode, we're bringing on Justin's lovely wife, April Leonard. So April is here to join us to discuss
Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues.
Wow.
Because
this was a very influential album in my life.
Okay.
And you guys, when you read the Moody Blues on the Snub list, you were kind of like, the Moody Blues, whatever.
I said something just like that. Yeah.
Something just like that. And, you know, you're wrong. Both of you are wrong.
Wait a minute. Why the fuck am I getting lumped in with this guy?
Our list sucks,
a package deal. Come on. I didn't instantly.
We kind of are a package deal at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, one of your opinions is both of your opinions at this point.
Now stop right fucking there. I categorically reject JB's opinion about 69 fucking love songs. So no, our opinions are not one and the same.
I categorically reject JB's opinions on 69 love songs as well.
I categorically support JB's opinion.
No, it is a pleasure to be here. And,
yeah, thanks for being here, April.
Absolutely.
This is a very influential album in my life, and I want to discuss it with the both of you.
I do too.
Yeah. Hey, but before we get started, can I just do one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, maybe a month ago or so, whenever Lee Stamper was a guest on your show of onlylee.com.
Yeah,
that's right.
Indeed.
Yeah. So it came out on the episode that Justin and I, we happened to give JB a copy of Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues on vinyl, and it came out.
Really?
Well, so Lee said that, you know, perhaps that meant that we love JB more than Mike.
Well, that's fucking obvious.
Well, no, it's not. Well, listen, hey, it's not obvious because I just want to say, Mike, we have a copy for you of the Days of Future Past.
Holy shitballs.
By the Moody Blues on vinyl.
Wow.
And I apologize. The condition is not the best because it's not the most easy album to come by. But,
I know.
You know, hey.
No, I actually appreciate the fact that you found a vintage copy of it.
Yeah. So I don't know whether this would have been one that you want on vinyl or not, but you have it regardless.
You beat me to the punch.
and also,
thank you.
Hey, like a year from now, when you get way further down the list, you know, it may come out that we may have given another album to JB that we didn't give to you. So we have that for you as well. It is A Stranger by Billy Joel. And this is on the list way far from here.
Guys.
But yeah, this is one that we gave to JB too. So, you know,
man,
we love you both equally.
It's all over the place.
And yeah, we want you to know that is the case. And these are the two albums we gave to JB and we gave to you as well.
What's next? April?
I'm super thrilled with. I'm actually super thrilled with getting Days of Future Past on vinyl because as I was listening to it, and I've probably listened to this album at least 6 times.
6 times?
Yeah.
Holy shit! I probably did 3 times this week.
Did you?
Yeah.
And I mean, most of that was just because I knew how important this album was to you, and so I didn't want to give it. I didn't want to give it like a cursory once over and just say, okay, you know, yeah, I listened to it and I liked it or I didn't like it. It wasn't about that. It was more about just me getting enough exposure that I feel like I could talk with it honestly to somebody that really, really values this album. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So where do you guys want to start? Because there's a ton of places that we can start, but the borderline shit-eating sinister grin on JB's face makes me want to go and say,
well, I was just going to say, let's start with just our general opinions. So just hammer it out.
Do it. I want to hear you.
This album is fucking incredible, and it made me rethink everything I said about the Moody Blues before.
Amen. Mike hates the Moody Blues. He's like, why the fuck did you give me
No. No, not at all.
Okay. Let's hear.
I wish that this would have been a Moody Blues record.
What do you mean?
What does that mean? Yeah. It is a Moody Blues record.
Is it?
You mean because of the symphony? Because there are very few points in the record where the band actually plays along with the symphony, and the symphony gets more playtime than the band. Is that what you're saying?
Well, okay. So my first blush, the first probably 2 or 3 listens through the record, I actually did think that the symphony got more playing time than the band. Not true, though.
Is it not?
No, it's definitely not true. If you really sit and listen to what's going on, you can really clearly pick out what was what the fuck? What was outsourced to the symphony, and then when the Moody Blues recorded the songs, right? Because the Moody Blues has probably 6, maybe even 7 songs on this record. Granted, there's 7 tracks,
but
right?
you're counting them the broken up. Like movements.
What I'm saying is that if you break out the movements, and the movements are specific to the actual band, the Moody Blues, I think there's probably 6 or 7 Moody Blues songs on here, and then you get the buffers, if you will, of the symphony.
Yeah.
And
I don't have a problem with it, though.
No. And I don't, listen, don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with it either. I would really be curious, though, to see what it would sound like if you just got the Moody Blues and if you stripped out the orchestra.
So I will say, I was discussing this with JB at some point, and then I went home and I said, hey, Alexa, play Tuesday Afternoon. And I heard Tuesday Afternoon without the context of the
symphony.
Without the symphony. And
Tuesday Afternoon.
It's a fantastic song. And hey,
it's beautiful.
You know what? In 10th grade, we played that in marching band Tuesday afternoon.
That's awesome. Did you do this whole thing?
What the fuck? That's like the hippest marching band I've ever fucking heard of.
That year, we played Tuesday Afternoon. We played Aqualung.
What the fuck?
Off. You had the coolest fucking band director ever.
We did. We absolutely did.
Were you a street marching band, or is this on the field?
It was the field.
Black market? Yeah.
Okay, so you were on the field. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Because I street marched for 3 out of 4 years in high school, and it was only my senior year.
I thought you meant street, like not involved with the school, just like a fucking group of hoodlums on the street that got together and formed a marching band.
No, listen, we're digging deep into the weeds in high school band nerddom. Whenever I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm a high school nerd marching band too.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
So street marching. You get in a big fucking block, you play some terrible John Philip Sousa march while you all march in step, and you got a color guard around you throwing flags and dumb shit.
No, in Easton Area High School, we played Tuesday Afternoon and we marched down the street.
I did the field.
Fuck off, really? You were doing that in the street?
Did you do a field show as well?
We absolutely did a field show.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we did a field show. I did a field show.
All right. Anyway, the point was, I said, hey, Alexa, play Tuesday Afternoon. And I heard Tuesday Afternoon not in the context of all the orchestral stuff.
Yeah.
And it was not nearly as good. Okay.
Does Tuesday afternoon not have any?
What's that?
Not have any symphony in it?
Tuesday Afternoon.
Are you talking about, is Tuesday Afternoon a specific movement within the track The Afternoon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes more sense. Now I know what you're saying.
It's the flute. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, the flute melody that comes in on top of the vocals and everything else. Like that's what stands out to me.
There's a flute one as well in Nights in White Satin. But regardless, so just hearing the song in itself, it's not as impactful as when you listen to it on the record and you hear it in the context of the whole orchestra.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. This thing is meant to be listened to in a row.
Absolutely. It's not an album whatsoever that you can listen to like one track.
I mean, it's the definition of a concept album.
Yes.
And it almost to me comes across as like a musical.
Yes.
Like, in fact, I would love to see a fucking the story fleshed out a little bit and like a musical version of this, like a musical production
Yeah.
Did
version.
they do that now?
You have to expand the story a little bit, make it a little more coherent of a story
Mhm.
line.
Because the story is the day of a man.
The day of the average man
Yeah.
and his like,
Or
trials
woman.
and whatever.
Yes, of course. The day of the average person.
Day of the average person.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the concept of the album.
Yeah.
And so listen, I don't disagree with you. It might be kind of fun to
Yeah.
see that play out in a larger production.
Yeah, it's so the songs are really good. The orchestral music is fantastic, but the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I feel like would I listen to the orchestral music by itself? Maybe not. Would the rock music, would it be impactful to me without the orchestral part?
Not as much.
No, it would not be. But
Even on the big songs?
the
Because
whole
I love Tuesday Afternoon,
It's a
and that could
fantastic-
stand alone for me.
Yeah, but don't you think it's more impactful with the orchestra behind it?
I do.
I do. Absolutely, I do.
And like, I think the fourth track, the lunch break one is the first thing where I'd even consider it rock.
Yeah, for
There's almost
peak
like
hour.
some like Beatles kind of vibes on that one.
In peak hour.
And it's just like, I wrote down overwhelmingly British sounding on that one. But like the first three tracks would not be what I would consider rock at all. Even though this is considered a prog rock album.
Mhm.
In fact, it's considered to be like the birth of prog rock.
It's probably
You know
the
what I mean?
first concept album. Probably.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the first concept albums, and it's funny because when I saw that they were credited with prog rock, I never thought about the Moody Blues as prog rock.
No,
And
I would not either.
Yeah, I thought of them more as just like 60s, like borderline psychedelic rock.
yeah, and I think that calling this a prog rock album is a stretch.
Mhm.
Only because when I think of prog rock, like I start to think about Rush, I think about King Crimson, I think about unique time signatures, I think about unique arrangements where it's hard to find the one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I think about when I think about prog rock.
But
And
what do you
that's-
think of as like the definition of prog rock though? Like what determines that it's prog rock?
Again, I think to really get that moniker, I think you at a bare minimum, I think you have to play with time signatures.
Yeah.
And that's a shitty way to define prog rock because progressive rock and roll doesn't just have to be about going beyond a 4/4.
Yeah, because I don't know, like
That's a
I
shitty
don't think
definition.
that I don't think it's a shitty definition, but I think that's more something that you see in prog rock a lot, but it's not necessarily an indicator.
You don't think it's
for me.
definitive of it?
I think what is definitive of prog rock is music that is rock and roll at its heart, but what it does is that it develops different ideas throughout. It moves from one motif to the next and doesn't return to the previous motif. And like it's a song that like it's not prog rock. What differentiates prog rock, and maybe I'm totally wrong about this, I could be, but like is that it doesn't follow typical song structure. It's not verse, chorus, bridge, double chorus, outro. It is a sequence of movements that changes throughout the song and doesn't necessarily return and resolve to like a part that came up earlier in the song.
Listen, I love that definition.
Mhm.
I love the idea of progressive rock being something that is, again, something that is moving but never returns to previously covered ground.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like I think that fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Which
But I
if you
guess-
use that, I feel like some of this fits it, but maybe not all of it. Yeah.
So I will say, okay, so JB like a little bit made fun of me last week for the email I wrote these two.
It was meant to be affectionate.
I took it as affectionate.
Good.
This is
Um,
podcast groveling at its finest right now.
But JB like fake made fun of me last week for the email I wrote
It
them.
seemed pretty sincere.
The
to me.
essay I wrote to them
Thanks, Mike.
with my feelings of this album. Okay. So they have not read this album, and I don't know if they intend to.
Yeah, no, we're going to.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just waiting. I was
well-
kind of building up to it. But
Regardless, so this was an album. Like I don't remember a time in my life where this album was not not part of it. Okay, so
Man, that's crazy.
I was born in 1981.
Yep.
And I remember from an extremely young age my dad playing this album and saying to me, what do you think of when you hear this orchestral music?
So this wasn't just when I was a kid growing up. Like when I think about the soundtrack of my life as a kid, I think about music that my parents would play listen, they would put on a record, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was never interactive.
Yeah.
So neither my mom nor my dad, to my memory, and forgive me, mom and dad, if you ever listen to this and you say to yourself, the fuck I didn't, Michael. I don't ever remember my parents, like, when music was on, interacting with me and saying, what do you think about this? Man, do you hear this? Do you hear that? And that's something that, like, I've done with all of my kids.
Yeah.
For the most part, even Victoria, who's only 10, there'll be times where we could be listening to something in the car and I'll comment to her, man, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Or did you hear that? That's really, really intriguing to my ear. So I find it really fascinating that your parents did do that, and that was this the primary album that you remember as them doing that with?
No.
Okay, so they did this all over the place.
Well, not all over the place, I would say, but like albums I remember listening to growing up that were influential in my appreciation of music was this album, Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues, Aqualung by Jethro Tull, and
classic.
Tapestry by Carole King is one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. It's fantastic.
Amen, sister.
So you guys have to have me on whenever you get to the album. It'll be like a year from now.
Because
you have to have me on.
That album has to be that. I mean, I don't know what you think about this, JB, but Carole King's Tapestry.
It's fantastic.
To me, that should be in the top 100.
So yeah,
it
is.
That's a crazy thing to say. Just me saying it out loud.
It
but
is.
I genuinely believe that album should be in the top 100.
It is. And so for me, the music that really sticks with me is the music that tells a story. Okay, it's either the story through lyrics or the story through like how it makes me feel. And Carole King is this. How it makes me feel through the lyrics. Okay, so there's this one song, Way Over Yonder. It brings me back to a time where Justin and we were in Belize and we were just kayaking down a river in the middle of the rainforest. And it brings me back to that moment. Okay, and like on the other album I gave you, Mike.
Thank you, Katie. Say hi to the camera.
Thank you, Katie.
Hi, Katie. The other album I gave you, Mike, The Stranger by Billy Joel, there's a song on there, Vienna. It reminds me of when I was in graduate school, okay? And my advisor in graduate school is like, you need to work. And that's the only way to get to success. And, for me, it was like, I want to work hard. I want to succeed, but I also want to enjoy my life. So that song is very impactful to me, lyric-wise. But there are also songs that tell a story to me because of the music, right? And I would say, like, one example of that is The Battle of Evermore by Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
Fuck yeah.
It brings me to this, like, crazy fantasy land. Oh, it's fantastic, right?
It is, yeah.
Let me guess on another one. It's going to be Rush, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, so that's another album you guys have to have me on is when you talk about.
Fuck yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
My favorite Rush album is not on the top 500 list.
Well, then we're going to do it as a snub episode.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
so that's
You're going to be on for that.
JB,
which one is that? While we're doing that, why don't you go ahead and just take a quick little break from this album? We'll get right back to it.
I thought.
And add, because April had a couple snub
my couple snubs.
Yes.
that she wanted to add to
My
the
couple
listener
snubs
snub.
Go.
were Dreamboat Annie by Heart,
Love it.
which has on it Crazy on You and Magic Man.
It makes me
A fantastic album.
Yeah, it makes me super
How-
sad.
how
to
is
now
that not
know
on the
Dreamboat
list?
Annie's not on this.
How is that not on the list?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a
that
good
one.
question, April. That's a
Okay.
good question.
Another album is Rhythm of the Saints by Paul Simon.
Noted. Added to the list.
Fantastic album. You guys especially should listen to Can't Run But. Fantastic song.
Okay.
What's the
And
Rush
then
one you want on
My Rush one is 2112.
What the
Ooh,
fuck?
man, that's not on there?
2112's not on this list.
there? Spoiler
2112.
alert.
The only spoiler alert, the only Rush is
Oh wait,
Don't tell us.
Actually,
Don't tell us.
don't tell you. Okay.
Because now we know that there's only one.
Only
Rush
one
album.
Rush.
It's Moving Pictures, right?
Yeah,
But-
it is.
All right.
Yeah. But 2112 is
I'm
not
gonna
on the
guess
Rush.
something else. Pulling one out of left field here.
But okay.
It's Roll the Bones, ain't it?
So like but hey, this whole conversation about Rush, it kind of brings me back to the Moody Blues, right? Because so the Moody Blues, I definitely listened to it because of my father, right? He played this record, the record I currently have in my possession. He played this record as I was
The
growing
same
up.
one?
The same
Wow,
one.
that's awesome.
I
Love
don't ever remember a time in my life where this music was not part of my life,
it.
right?
Man,
That's incredible.
that's beautiful.
And years later in my 30s, you know, I independently heard Tom Sawyer. And I was like, what is this song? This song is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to hear more of this band. What is this? You know?
And then you heard Limelight, and you were like, "Fuck, that song's even better."
But then I'm like, listen, then I talked to my dad and I was
She
like,
said,
hey,
listen.
hey, I heard a song
Drinking
by
game.
this band Rush. And he said, you know, hey, this was my first date with my mother. They went to a Rush show at this like little movie theater, paid like $2 for the ticket. And they saw Rush back in the day when they were like no big deal.
I love that.
And
That is awesome.
I feel like my appreciation of Rush stemmed from listening to the Moody Blues.
Wow.
when I was, like-
that's an interesting perspective. I'm
like-
glad you
Crazy.
mentioned that. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even know how old like I don't remember a time when this record was not part of my life.
Yeah. And
Wow.
did not have a good effect on the way you consume music in general.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely did.
You said, I do want to make a quick side note. You
Mm.
said listen during there, and that reminded me that Linda who's a frequent listener. Just going back to how Mike said listen a lot. And then we pointed it out, and he apologized, and then she was like, no, she doesn't want you to stop because you're messing with her drinking game. Okay. So don't stop saying it. In fact, up
Right.
it, you know.
Yeah.
And
Listen up, Linda. Fucking drink.
yes. Okay. Anyways, I think this is going to be a good chance to read off your essay. Is that okay with you?
Yes, please
Yes,
do.
please
Settle
do.
in, folks. So I'm just gonna read.
Settle in. You might be here a while. Yeah.
I'm just gonna read your whole email from the beginning. So there's a little bit of an introduction here. So from April Leonard. Hi, Mike and JB. I've really been enjoying your podcast. I've been listening to more music as a result, and I've discovered new music I like based on your reviews. However, in response to your lukewarm reaction to the Moody Blues being on the snubs list,
Very lukewarm.
yeah, it was. And you know what? We stand corrected. I feel the need to write an email in defense of the album Days of Future Past. The album absolutely deserves to be on the top 500 list. In fact, although albums may come and go depending on my mood and what I'm listening to at the time, Days of Future Past has a permanent spot on my personal top 10 albums of all time list.
Mhm.
I need to start with a couple caveats relating to how I listen to music. First, as much as I love music, I would not consider myself to be a music nerd. I generally listen to what I know and like, and I don't usually go much beyond that. Case in point from a recent episode, although I love the album Elephant, I don't know any other White Stripes songs. The same goes for the Moody Blues. As important as I feel Days of Future Past is, I have not listened to any other Moody Blues music. It could be that your response to the Moody Blues is warranted based on their other music, but definitely not Days of Future Past. The second caveat...
Definitely not.
Definitely not. The second caveat is that normally I don't need to listen to any album all the way through. I'm usually perfectly happy to skip around to listen to my favorite songs or to stream music from a particular band, shuffling songs from all albums. This is not the case at all with Days of Future Past. The songs on this album are good. Some are better than others, but this album is not about the individual songs. This album is a complete work of art that cannot be broken down into pieces. To do anything other than listen to Days of Future Past from start to finish in one sitting is to do a disservice to yourself, as you will be missing out on the whole experience. That's valid. If you have not listened to Days of Future Past yet, let me give you a description of the album. It is a concept album following the course of a day from dawn to nighttime. It is not so much an album of rock songs as it is a symphony into which rock songs are embedded, with each movement of the symphony being a different part of the day. This album has been cited as one of the first examples of progressive rock. As a kid, Days of Future Past was one of my first exposures to not only rock music, but to classical music. I have clear memories of being a very small child and listening to the album with my dad. During the orchestral parts, he would ask me what the music made me think of. I remember telling him that The Morning made me think of a deer prancing through the woods on a sunny day. The experiences I had listening to this album with my dad had a huge influence on my taste in music and the way I experience it to this day. Even now, the songs that grab me the most and the ones that tell a story through the music. I am very interested to hear what you both think about this album when you listen to it. To me, the songs are fine, but the album as a whole is a work of art which has had a huge influence on me. I was really shocked to hear this wasn't on the top 500 list. For me, there are a few albums more deserving. This list really does suck.
Well, what a well-written essay that is.
That was
beautiful.
Yeah, composed beautifully. And I agree with everything you're saying in here. I got to be honest. Like, you're totally right. Like, if you pick out any of these songs and you just told someone to listen to it, they'd be like, "What the fuck? Why did you tell me to listen to that?" But
Yeah.
if you listen to the whole album, they're undoubtedly they're going to be like, "That was great."
Yeah.
Like I mean that in a good way. Like,
Yeah.
because some of these they would feel out of place.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there's maybe one or two that you could just play stand alone and people would maybe get it.
Yeah, Nights in White and Satin.
Yeah.
But
Which I do want to say that's I think
Or
the only
Dawn.
one. Yeah, Dawn might work.
Dawn is a feeling.
Nice and White Satin
that
is the
wouldn't fucking
only
work.
song I think when you don't think so?
I was totally being sarcastic.
Oh.
If you fucking told somebody to listen to Dawn is a feeling, they'd be like, "What the fuck is this, dude?"
Yeah.
Like, it's so
No,
random.
I
It's
do
so
not
weird.
disagree with you. This is a very important album in the way I perceive music.
Yeah.
And I do not disagree with you.
Yeah.
But it's something that you have to listen to as a whole.
Correct.
It's not just one single song. You have to listen to the whole album in the context of the orchestral music and the rock music.
I think Nice
Absolutely.
and White and Satin is one of the only ones where the band played along with the orchestra.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's the
true.
only one that
Mhm.
they did in
That's
the
true.
recording.
The only one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only in the recording.
Yeah.
I love Tuesday Afternoon though.
Yeah, that was probably.
I mean, I really fucking love it. There's just like, I love the chord progressions in that song. I love the vocals. Like, I love the way that the vocals are interlaid with the flute. The flute line in that Tuesday Afternoon song is just spectacularly beautiful. And it's funny because that's, that song fits within the afternoon, within the context of like the concept of a day. And yet, especially that flute line, like, I think of a morning. Like, I almost think of a sunrise whenever I hear the flute line from Tuesday Afternoon, but it doesn't make me upset about it. I mean, listen, I'm not upset about it at all. I do.
It's like when you're still finishing your coffee, but
Yeah.
it could be the
Yes.
afternoon. Yeah.
I think
Sometimes I drink my coffee in the afternoon, April.
Yeah. Hey, so it could be Tuesday afternoon. You're
Yeah.
drinking your coffee. Yeah.
here's my question, and I don't know if either one of you know the answer to this. Did they compose everything that they gave to
That's
the London
exactly what I was
Symphony?
going to bring up as well.
I don't know. And I Googled that.
If they
I mean,
did,
I did not look deeply into that.
Yeah, but could you find it?
in a quick, like a 10-minute Google, I don't know.
if they
Yeah.
did, that's incredible.
And
Because
And that's where I'm at.
yeah,
Because if any of the members of the Moody Blues constructed the orchestral arrangement that accompanied this,
well, I think the really tricky thing. Sorry, you go ahead and finish what you're going to say.
well, I was just going to say this album to me, like, it's probably a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Like, it's really, really good. I love it. you have to consume it as a whole.
Absolutely, you do.
Like you can't. I mean, you could peel out Nights of White Set or The Night if you wanted to. I think that's the name. Yeah, you could peel out The Night if you wanted to, because that's really Nights in White Satin. It's instantly recognizable. And you could, in theory, peel that off and just say to yourself, oh, wow, I've never heard the extended cut of Nights in White Satin.
No, you have to listen to it all to get the full effects.
No, I agree. But if you just told somebody, hey, go listen to that, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I know that song. That's a really great song. But I've never heard that version. I don't like, do they always have that orchestra involved? Right? Like somebody unknowing, because this song was released. Nights in White Satin was released as Nights in White Satin.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, they did strip off all of the vocal arrangements on the front and the back of Nights in White Satin, and they released it as a radio single. And I want to say that was probably at the time the most successful single that the Moody Blues had released up till then. Yeah. Because quite frankly, going into the studio with this album, they didn't really know what the fuck to do with the Moody Blues, because they didn't have like a really strong identity.
Well, I don't think it was like even meant to be what it ended up being.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Because it was just like, well, all right, these guys have this fucking crazy idea, so whatever, let's do it. But it wasn't, this wasn't a by design where everybody is like, oh, the Moody Blues is going to be really great with the London Symphony.
We have this concept album, we're going to put it together. Yeah. It was more of like a, let's see what happens. And they went to record something else, I think. And this is what ended up coming out.
This was like this was the fucking happiest of happy accidents.
Absolutely.
In Bob Ross's parlance. Right.
And I want to add a caveat to the, you can't listen to it separately thing. I think the first time you can't listen to it separately. But I think once you've listened to it all together, you can definitely go back and listen to individual pieces, and
Would you
enjoy
want to?
it.
I don't know. Because like after I was talking to JB about it, I gave JB the record and I said, hey, here's this album I feel very passionately about. You should listen to it. I went home and said, hey, Alexa, play Tuesday.
And it didn't have the same effect.
Play Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
And it did not have remotely the same effects without the like whole orchestral context.
The fit.
I mean, it was still a great song. Brought me back to marching band in 10th grade.
And just going back to the,
but I mean,
the
like
raddest marching band of all time. Just
the raddest marching band. Shout out to Eastern Area High School marching band of whatever 1990s.
And just going back to like
7, I don't know.
Just going back to like if they compose the orchestral parts.
That I don't know.
See, I don't know. I mean, like if they did the whole thing, it's incredible. I think what's more likely is that they composed the melody and then someone else did the orchestration, which is like the really difficult part of that. Like not that composing a melody like obviously requires some serious level of inspiration, but deciding like what instrument plays what at what time, how do you parse out everything is the really in-depth stuff. And if they did that themselves, then that's just wild. So
that's the challenge of not only composing, but arrangement.
Yeah.
Right. An arrangement of music is almost, I mean, I would argue that the way that music is arranged is probably more important than the way that it's composed, at least in some contexts. And this is probably one of those contexts.
You could take like a shitty melody and make it sound good if you arrange it.
Arrange it properly. Exactly.
The wall of sound.
Can we not?
No, that's exactly right though, because that's exactly what Phil Spector was thinking. He was like, what? If I just take these shitty songs that these guys can't barely fucking write, and I put this sound behind it, it's going to sell me $1 million.
JB, it's hard to hear you with Phil Spector's dick in your mouth.
I know.
So please, let's go ahead and.
Right.
I said
you know how I feel about Phil Spector.
I said that in a completely joking context. And for those of you not watching on YouTube, you didn't get to see Mike's face in response to no. But okay, so whether or not who arranged it, the conductor of the orchestra or Moody Blues, this is the album that we came out with, right?
Yeah.
And does this deserve to be on the list? Is the question. I completely 100%. I 100%
kudos to you. I love conviction. There's no conviction I love more though than 100% conviction.
100,
That is true conviction.
100%.
Are you sure
I
it's
love
100? It's not 98.
No, hey, if anything, it's more than 100%.
It's more than 100%.
110%. That's not
Okay.
one.
It's okay. I do want to ask you another question though.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously your dad was big into this record. Was he big into the other Moody Blues?
So growing up, I never heard any of the other Moody Blues. I heard
Interesting.
Jethro Tull growing up.
Yep.
I heard Carole King growing up. I feel like my parents had these albums that they loved, and that's what they played. They played Aqualung. They played Days of Future Past. They played Tapestry. These are the records I heard growing up.
I only asked that question because I have, after I listened to this record for the first time on a cold listen, I legitimately loved it. And I immediately thought, fuck, I have just been completely asleep at the wheel on the Moody Blues. So what else is there?
Did you dig in?
I mean, not super deep, but I did go into In Search of the Lost Chord, which was the album that was released after Days of Future Past.
Is it highly rated? Did you look into that at all?
I didn't look to see if it was on the list or anything else. Well, actually, I know there's
It's not on the list,
yeah,
but
because there's no Moody Blues records on the list. But in the catalog of Moody Blues as a whole, yeah, it's an album that's held up, right? And if you listen to that, it's very traditional, right? There's no orchestra involved. It's not really a concept album. If it is, it's a loose concept at best. And it's songs, right?
Is it prog rock?
Song 1, song 2, song 3. I would call it more psychedelic than what I would call it progressive.
See, that's been my experience with the Moody Blues. But again, this record is considered widely to be part of the birth of progressive rock.
And it has to be part of the birth of the concept album.
The concept
too.
album, right? I don't know so much progressive rock, but absolutely the concept album.
Yeah.
This has got to be one of the first examples.
It's got to be one of the first.
I think the Beach Boys were one of the very first examples, actually. But
this is 1967. This album,
Wild
Days of
Honey?
Future Past.
no, the one before that. The first beat. Remember, we had a conversation about this because you said it's actually not a concept album in your opinion, but whichever the album was before that we did, I can't remember what it was called.
I don't remember the title of the album.
But it is considered to be one of the first known examples of a concept album. That first Beach Boys that we did.
Well,
I remember you guys talking about that.
I remember that too.
I don't recall the album. But.
Let's be super clear though. There are.
It was called. It was the self-titled. It was the Beach Boys Today.
Okay. There are definitely concept albums that are terrible and don't really do a very good job of conveying the concept. And then there are other albums that are wildly successful.
So just because it was the first example doesn't mean it was a good example. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's exactly.
And this is a good example. And I also think this is a good example of prog rock. And so with that in mind, I'm all for it. It needs to be on the list.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so here's the $1 million question though. And I want to pose this to April 1st. Where? Give me a 50 song range that this song should be at. And I don't want it to be a 50 song range based on the influence on your life. I would like it to be as objective as you can possibly make it within the context of what we've heard so far. And if you've cheated on the list, awesome.
I've absolutely cheated.
I know you have. Everybody has. And even
well, I've given you an album that we've cheated on.
I know.
And you guys have to me on for that one.
So that's on there. Spoiler:
The Stranger is on the list. JP, I've told you about this.
I know. I'm just kidding.
That's okay. Where do you put it? In a 50 song, in a 50 title range, where would you put it?
That's a hard question.
It is.
It's a really hard question. I mean, in my life, it's in the top 10.
I don't want it subjective.
Doubt,
I want it objective.
Doubt. In the top 500 albums of all times.
Purely objective.
I don't know. I mean, this is one of the first concept albums.
Yep.
It's one of the first progressive rock albums. I mean, I feel like it's got to be in the top 200.
Wow. Ballsy call.
I mean,
about you,
what do
JD?
you guys think?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So what do you think? I'm going to go last.
400 to 450.
Now you're talking my language.
I think this is a fantastic album, but I think that there's 400 to 450 albums that I would rate higher.
Fair.
Yeah. Honestly, if you kicked out that bullshit fucking 69 love songs and replaced it with the Moody Blues, I would be okay with that. If you replaced, I don't know, one of those fucking jerk off Latino. Actually, I shouldn't say that.
And don't
Like
get us
bad-
wrong. Like,
Yeah, listen, it as Bad Bunny.
yeah,
Right?
that's what he's talking
Like
about.
if you replaced Bad Bunny with this album, I would say, fuck yeah. You know,
And don't get us wrong. I don't
mean.
mean that as a slight at all. I mean, this is the 500 greatest albums of all time. If we said it belonged as number 500, that's still a huge.
Listen, here's the context. Every Friday, we fucking, or for the most part, we fucking record this podcast every Friday. New music drops on every Friday. You don't have to go back that many weeks to figure out what my bitch is at this point in time with new music. And that's that every fucking week, there's 6 new mixtapes out from the next Drake.
And
right.
Today there was 39, right?
I fucking however many there were.
Yeah.
I don't know. I stopped counting, right? Because it's just like, it's detritus at this point, you know? And so now if you take that same concept and span it out over 75 fucking years, you've got a tremendous amount of detritus before you get into, okay, like this is not only a really good record, this is one of the greatest 500 records that's ever been put to vinyl.
Yeah.
And I think that this fits. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it as much credence as you do.
Fair.
But that's where subjective and objective becomes incredibly difficult if you were talking about music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
and
it's
you know-
really hard for you to not. And I'm not saying that you can't separate in your mind, but to like to paint that picture without being at least a little bit subjective. And there are
That's
tons
right.
of albums that I'm going to have the same issue with.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And you know what? This has a very strong personal impact on my life.
Of
And
course.
I can see that causing it to be, in my mind, much higher on the list than it is for
That's
you.
right.
Yeah.
I think that we're all in agreement that it deserves to be on the list.
It
Yeah.
does.
And that's all that matters.
It deserves to be on the list.
I'm there.
Where it deserves to be on the list maybe is up for debate. I mean,
But it's worthy of
for
recognition.
me, it's higher because of the personal impact it had on me and the way I perceive all other music. Like, I don't remember a time when this album was not in my life.
Yep.
What I'm really excited about is our snub list said every Moody Blues album. And I'm excited about being able to dig into In Search of the Lost Chord. Because I really want to know what your take is on that. There's a certain part of me that wants to say, when we do In Search of the Lost Chord, which is an album that I don't think that you have a ton of
I
experience
don't
with,
know
April.
any other Moody Blues other than the Days of Future Past.
I would actually love
To have her on for that.
to revisit this.
I'll
Let's
do
do
it.
that.
To revisit this for that album.
I'll do it.
Because I think that there's so much just in the very little bit of time that I spent with that album. I think that there's a lot that you would say, oh fuck yeah, I really like this and I really like that.
Mhm.
It is wildly different.
Yeah.
I mean, wildly different.
Most of
than
the
what they
stuff
were
that I've
doing.
heard from them is not anything like this. That's why, like the original comments that I made were not reflected in this album whatsoever. So
Yeah. And that's also what speaks to the notion that you're like, actually, that all of us, right, have collectively agreed this is fucked up. This album should be on here.
Yeah,
Now,
it should
you,
be.
You want to
100%.
see this album a
Mhm.
lot higher than I think that either of us do. But
That's
either way, all
that's a personal preference.
That's
that's,
right.
that's something
from
that we all wanted on the list.
sentimental
That's exactly
value.
right.
Yeah.
that's exactly right. So
Well, pretty conclusive results on this one, guys. So go check out Days of Future Past. It's
Absolutely.
worth a listen. It's only 40 minutes long. something
You
like
won't be
that.
disappointed.
Yeah.
No.
You absolutely would not be disappointed.
no. And I definitely wanted to make mention of this. If you have been if you've been watching WandaVision on Disney Plus, which is the newest like TV series that's based around the Scarlet Witch and Vision from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that you would be really hard pressed not to think about this record within the context of that TV show. And I just want to have either of you watched it?
I'm like 2 episodes in.
I've not watched it, but my
2 or
parents have
3.
talked to me about
Maybe
it. Yeah.
Okay, so dude, you're actually there then.
So should I give spoilers for the 3rd episode? Well, everyone's probably watched it at this point.
I've
Just
not
so I can give you.
watched it.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. All right. Well, then never mind. I won't do it. I won't
Take
do
off
it.
your cans.
I won't
Take
do
off your
it.
cans and plug your ears. No, I'm just joking.
She's gonna do it. We'll talk about it later, but we'll have to revisit that because I don't. Yeah.
Okay,
wait,
so
wait,
here's
does this album resonate with you in the context of what you watched with WandaVision?
Not yet, but I'm only 2 episodes in, so
Okay.
or 2 or 3. Yeah.
there are multiple times in the orchestra, and I'm specifically thinking about The Morning, Another Morning, and really Lunch Break, like the orchestral beginning before you get into Peak Hour, which Peak Hour is really the song, right? The title, if you pull it up on Spotify or if you pull it up on Apple Music, it's going to say Lunch Break, Peak Hour. So Lunch Break is kind of like the orchestral introduction into Peak Hour, which is Peak Hour is really the Moody Blues song that's sandwiched between these orchestral arrangements. And if you listen to the orchestral arrangement before Peak Hour, it reminds me of something that you would have heard on a sitcom from the 1960s.
I can see that. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does.
I
make
mean,
sense.
it sounds like music that you would hear.
It didn't occur to me naturally, but when you say that, it does make sense.
Well, this album is from 1967.
Exactly.
Is it not?
And what it reminds me of is first of all, if you haven't watched, my wife and I finished it tonight before I came over for the podcast, and it's fucking phenomenal. You should absolutely watch it. It
really picks up as it goes, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really is a really wonderful show. But it starts off as this riff or play on early 1960s sitcoms. So like the first episode is basically a riff on the Dick Van Dyke Show. The second episode is really a riff on Bewitched, like early black and white Bewitched. So the third one is basically a ripoff of like Malcolm in the Middle. It's really brilliantly done. But you know, when I was growing up, a lot of times my sister and I, like whenever we would get home after school, we would watch old shitty like reruns of TV shows.
Yeah.
And we loved watching Bewitched reruns, especially the black and white version of Bewitched. And the orchestral arrangement in the beginning of Lunch Hour really reminds me of something that like you would hear in the background as like Tabitha, the witch on Bewitched, was like making dinner hurriedly as like Dick was heading over with his boss from the company, which is what made me think of
that happened in the first episode.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened in the first episode. And like as she was like concocting that dinner, all this orchestral music that's happening, like really fast paced, like that's what it reminded me of.
But so that to me is part of the power of this music, is that it elicits this image in your mind.
Yes.
Of whatever it may be, whatever part of the day it is, you know. I mean, for me, the music that really sticks with me, like I said before, is the music that creates an emotional or mental response of like, you know, a picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's through the lyrics, through like I said,
To the music.
Or through the
Carole King,
I feel like
has
symphonies do that.
has like incredible
That's right.
lyrical response, or symphonies
Yeah.
through this music, or like
I feel like the
like I said, the Battle of Evermore. You know,
Yeah.
it's like two different ways you can get
the symphony.
a visual response or emotional response to music, either through the lyrics or through the music. And
that's
for me, you know, this music, I would say, is my first picture, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, like
Your
music,
first musical
exactly what
picture
you're
that you
yeah,
conceived
absolutely.
of.
Like I
That's
don't
right.
remember a time when this music was ever not in my life.
and that's
And
the
it
beauty of music in
completely
general.
absolutely.
I mean, the ability to connect either with what you're hearing just through notes and instrumentation or what you're hearing lyrically, right? And we explored this in the main episode when Justin was talking about the connection with everything that Robert Hunter was doing when he crafted all of those Dead lyrics. And it wasn't just on Working Man's Dead. It was all through all those 5 albums. Like that's the beauty of music. And that's the best part about doing this podcast is because I feel like JB and I are probably more copacetic in the fact that, and I don't know, like, I don't want to speak for you, JB, but I'm not a lyrics guy.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same in that.
Yeah, it's about the feel of the instrumentation and what those notes, the feeling that those notes create.
Yeah. And lyrics are more of like a cherry on top for us.
Yeah.
Like if they're good and witty.
If they're good and they stand out, it's even better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love the fact that like Justin connects through the words, right?
Yeah.
And he listens for those words and he creates connections through the words, and it's a beauty and power of music.
Yeah. For me, it's more like the musical connection.
Yeah.
But like I really resonated with what you guys talked about last week with Rex, with the Smokey Robinson, how it brought him back to the exact moment.
His childhood. Yeah.
Sitting in a car.
Exact moment. It was like sitting in the car, listening to it with his mother.
Yeah.
And like, Shane said something very similar about what was that about? He said something was it the Creedence one? Where he said he remembered the carpet that he was sitting on in front of the record player.
Yes.
And for this album, like I remember standing on the couch in the living room when my dad was playing this record, the same record that I have now that I play on my record player in my living room.
That is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Listening to this and him asking me, hey, what do you think of when you hear this piece of orchestral music?
Yeah. Dude, your dad's a stud.
Big time.
Like I'm trying to replicate what your dad did with you, with my own kids, like trying to get them to think about like how important and how impactful music can be in your life.
I mean, I don't have children, but I feel like if I did, that would be one thing, like, hey, listen to this music. How does it make you think? How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
That's important.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's important.
It's a beautiful thing.
And so like 30 years later, they'll look back on it and
hopefully. Okay, so next week we're going to take a break from the big list.
Yes.
And whenever we go back next week, we're actually going to dig in. So next week, we're not going to do a bonus episode. We're just going to do a single
bonus episode.
Yeah, it's going to be like a single big bonus.
We're going to do 5 snub episodes.
That's right.
And we've Mike and I have kind of talked over a little bit which ones we're going to do. So
this is subject to change.
Yeah, this could potentially change. One of these is a potential to change.
Yeah,
we're trying to lock in a guest, and if that guest is going to be in, the list will be as we state here. And if the guest is unable, we will end up switching one of these albums.
Yeah, minor tweak.
Yeah,
minor tweak.
So I'll read one. We're going to start off with Tool, Undertow.
Yep, and then after that, we're going to talk about the second album from Alice in Chains, Dirt.
We're going to do My Morning Jacket's Z.
We're going to do Z or It Still Moves?
Oh, sorry, It Still Moves. We're going to do It Still Moves. We're going to do Z in the future. We're going to do It Still Moves by My Morning Jacket this week.
It Still Moves. The fourth album that we'll do next week is going to be In the Court of the Crimson King.
And then finally, we'll pick back up with the one that we intended to do last week, which is Animals by Pink Floyd.
That's right. So join us next week. We're super excited about being able to do that. Hopefully we can line up Justin out in the
New York,
out in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll be able to join us. And if he can't, we'll throw a little bit of a curveball in there. But then 2 weeks, so week after next, it's a big episode because
it's our first 100.
Yeah, 2 weeks from today, we're going to be tying up the first 100, 20% of the way through the list. We're going to be popping some terrible champagne that
Justin's going to buy for us.
Production assistant Justin is going to be buying for us.
Wait, I should come from that episode too, so I can have some shitty champagne.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, you should. So as always,
hopefully we'll be okay afterwards.
Hopefully. Thanks for listening. Love
Thanks
to
for
have
listening.
you.
Thank you for joining us, April.
And
Pleasure
thank you,
to be
yeah.
here. Thank you both for having me.
We were very
Mm.
excited to have you on for this
Thank you for
record
the
in particular.
records.
So
Jesus, God, you gave me 2 records. I'm
Yeah. So,
excited.
well, hey, you have to
thank
be
you too as
back.
well.
I know, absolutely.
So I'm sure we'll, have you joining us in the future.
Mhm.
I would love that. Yeah.
In the days of future, not past.
Oh,
You like that?
Topical.
This
All right. That being
guy.
said, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
April.
This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
Oh, bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, so